Alright, first thing first, we're going to go ahead and get the brakes off. Start working our way out from there. Uh, 13mm caliber bolts. Push that piston in a little bit, make it easier to get the caliper off here. There we go. See, these pads here are getting pretty thin. We've got new ones for it. Go ahead and push your pistons back in. I just stick a pad in between the piston and the caliper itself, just like this, and use a C-clamp. Push it in. Two 18mm. We'll be able to slip the rotor off. Alright, we can go ahead and disconnect the vacuum line for the four-wheel drive. Get that out the way there. And then next we'll work on getting this ABS wheel speed sensor here unplugged. Get ready to drop the knuckle to get in here to remove the ball joints. Just follow the wire all the way up to the top. It plugs in right behind the inner fender. You can remove it. Right up here, it goes. You'll see the plugs right in those two holes. Just go ahead and pull the connector down here and push in on the tab, and you'll be able to unplug it just like that. Once you got that undone, like I said, we can start working on getting the tie rod off. We'll break that free, and then get the ball joints loosened up on here. Get ready to pull the knuckle. Alright, next thing to remove, we're going to go ahead and get the nut off that tie rod. We'll break that free from the knuckle, and then we'll start working on the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint there. Alright, a few taps with the hammer, and we'll be able to get that right off of there. There we go. Alright, right before we get to the ball joints, if yours is four-wheel drive, we're going to go ahead and take this cap off of the hub here and undo the axle and get it separated. That way when we go to the ball joints, the knuckle can fall right off. Alright, once you got the cap off, it is a 13mm. So we'll use a 13mm socket here. Go ahead and take that off. Set that nut off to the side. It's gonna be a 21 millimeter. We're gonna go ahead and put a swivel in there. We'll use our impact to break it loose if it will. There we go. And then I just like to put this nut back on just a turn or two. So we got to work on getting that ball joint undone from the knuckle here. All right, there we go. We'll leave that one in until we get the bottom one undone. Let's try to see what's going on there. Alright, so it's on the underneath side, right here. So we're going to go ahead and use the impact on that, see if we can get it loose. And if it does, like I said, we got to get it separated from the knuckle. And we'll be ready to start working on the ball joints. Alright, once you got it off, we'll go ahead and just take the nut, stick it back on this one, just a couple turns. That'll be fine. And we'll go ahead and remove this top nut for the upper ball joint. Alright. You'll see our axle starts to separate here. Last thing we need to do is get the ball joint out of the nut. Alright, once you've beaten it loose with the hammer, you can go ahead and pick up on it. We'll take that nut off of the bottom there. Alright, now we've got the knuckle drop down. We'll clean that up a little bit. We'll set it off to the side for now. Next thing we're going to do here, just pick the axle up. I set it right over the sway bar. Just get it out the way. We're going to go ahead and knock this ball joint out. And we'll work on getting the strut out of the way here. We're putting new struts on it. You see this one's got broken springs. We'll go ahead and get the strut out of the way so we can get the upper ball joint off as well. It's got a snap ring on top of the lower ball joint here. Just use a pair of snap ring pliers, just like these. Take that loose. Set it off to the side. You won't need to reuse that. Then we'll go ahead and we'll try to knock this out with a hammer. If that doesn't work, then we'll just use the ball joint press. Yeah, we're going to make very little way with the hammer, it looks to be. We'll go ahead and get the ball joint pressed out. Alright, nothing fancy here, guys. We'll just use a receiver cup like this. We'll push it around the back side of this control arm. That has something good to bite onto. And then we'll set the actual press up right on top. Alright, so if you've got it all on there right, this is how you're going to want your setup to look like. Ball joint press, just push it straight at the top. One cup. Turn around this way, that way it has something to bite onto on the control arm side back here. And just make sure that the bottom joint is lined up with the bottom of that ball joint press there. That way that doesn't get stuck on you when you're going to try to turn this thing out. And you can see that using the press the lower ball joints out makes easy work of it, so you're not sitting there beating this thing for hours trying to get it out of its spot. Alright, before we get the new one installed, we'll get this cleaned out. We're going to go ahead and work on getting this strut out of here though. First thing we're going to do is go ahead and take the bolt out from the bottom. I believe this one is a 27 millimeter. Could be wrong, 30 I think is what it is. 27 on this side, 30 on this side. Alright. Got the nut off here, we'll set it off to the side. We'll go ahead and take a 27 millimeter socket, use it on the head of the bolt side here to try to spin this free where it's a little corroded up. Alright, once you get it to spin, you should be able to use a hammer. Just come around the back side here and knock it out to this point. Once you get to this point, and you've got the bolt sticking about halfway, what I like to do, I like to grab a wrench and put it on the back side of the bolt here, and I'll use the impact to spin it the rest of the way out. Just kind of push on it with the wrench, and that'll bring it right out. Set your bolt off to the side. We'll clean the threads up on that a little bit. Definitely got some crust on there. Alright. Once we've got the bolt out, we'll go ahead and just make sure this strut is separated from the control arm here. If you're having a hard time trying to get your strut out, depending on what model you're working on, you can always take the sway bar link loose here. In our case, we're not replacing it, nor are we needing to take it loose. We'll have plenty of room to be able to go ahead and slip the strut out to get the old one out and the new one in. But if it's giving you a hard time trying to get it out from here, if you loosen up the sway bar link, it'll allow this control arm to be able to drop all the way down, so you'll be able to push it out of the way, no problem. Alright, next on the to-do list is going to be to get these top 3 15 millimeter strut bolts out, take the nuts off, and we'll be able to drop the strut up right out of the way. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and pry out on the bottom of the strut here. You'll see at the top, we'll go ahead and just got to twist this mount out of the way to get it out of its mounting position. Just like that. And we'll pull it straight out. Set it off to the side. Alright, last thing we're going to do here, as far as the removal, we're going to go ahead and work on getting this nut off of the upper control arm on this side, and there's one on the other side over here. And once we do that, we'll be able to get this ball joint out the way, and we can start cleaning everything up and going back together. Alright, we're going to be using 21 millimeter wrenches here. You can see that. We're gonna use one to hold the inside, right here, and the other one to take the nut loose. Alright, go ahead and take that out. Once you get the bolt out here, the control arm, it's going to want to fall out of place. Go ahead and grab a hold of it. And we'll take it out just like that. One thing to note, if you're doing this job yourself here, the lower ball joints for both sides are exactly the same. The struts for both sides are exactly the same. The only part that's going to be different side to side is going to be your upper control arms here. And you'll see they have the driver's side marked with the L right here. That's the left side, and the passenger side will be marked with the R for right side. Just make sure when you get your new parts out of the box, you match them up right, and get the right upper control arms put on the right side. Alright, go ahead and get your tie rod back together here. Once it's tightened up, we'll work on getting the brakes. Alright, go ahead and grab your rotor, get it put back on into place. Grab our caliper bracket. Go ahead and get that tightened down. All right, we'll get that torque down real quick. All right, then we're going to go ahead and move on to installing the pads. We'll get all the hardware cleaned up, grease the contact points on the pads, and we'll get those put into place. All right, we'll go ahead and get our pad spreader springs put on. Go ahead and get this caliper off the bungee. All right, we'll let it hang for just a moment here. Go ahead and get the springs put into place. All right, go ahead and grab your caliper here. Get your bolts. Go ahead and start those. Don't forget while you're in here to grease up your guide pins. Make sure they're sliding back and forth good, nothing seized up on you. All right, we'll go ahead and get these tightened down. Get our bungee out the way. Go ahead and rerun our wheel speed sensor here and get our vacuum line hooked back up. Alright, once you got all that hooked back up, we're just going to finish running the wheel speed sensor here. We'll get it plugged up in its spot. Let's get that plugged up real quick. Make sure it's good and tight. Alright, flip it right back into its home right here. You got it all mounted. Alright, just go through, make sure you don't forget anything. Grease your ball joints now. That'd be a good time to finish doing that. Get your wheel back on. The procedure is exactly the same for the other side. That's it. Thanks for watching.